We love customizing models on Tabletop Time, and previously we have done some amazing things with Hero Forge, creating a custom giant and a massive ship golem. But we've never played around with sci-fi.
Yeah, Dave and I really love sci-fi and mechs particularly, but we haven't built a mech. So we're gonna do that today using Hero Forge, see what we can do. We're gonna see what's possible with the software. It'll be awesome. Come on, let's go.
So, welcome to Hero Forge's interface. It's here, it's there. I'm jumping around the screen, but now I'm staying still. This is where we're gonna do most of the work actually putting this together. And for those who are not familiar, Hero Forge is an amazing character creator software. It's a bit of a customizer specifically designed for you to customize and create D&D roleplay and tabletop characters. However, that is just the beginning. So the starting point here is of course the cockpit. And if I wanna have an open cockpit with something sitting in there, I need to find a large object that I can use for that. Thankfully, there are astronaut helmets, and I'm going to use a welding mask as the actual visor, all scaled up to large proportions. I'm gonna need to cover this in greebles, which are basically just decorations to hide the overstretched size of the original models, but they're effectively just providing a framework for my 3D model and structural support. From here, I make use of a wheelchair, which becomes the pilot's cockpit throne. Going around the back, there are several science fiction backpacks available, and they go from astronaut backpacks to jetpacks, steampunk, science fiction generators. And I can use a combination of these to greeble around the back of the torso and create kind of an engine array. With visible exhausts, lots of mechanical details, these work fantastically, and when blended and mirrored correctly in the software, I think they pretty quickly hide the silhouette of that space helmet. Up the front of the mech, I don't want it to just look like a welding mask, so I add a riot shield to the front, which has a far stronger but smaller reinforced vision slit. And on the side of this, I use a brass telescope and some rifle lenses to build a sensor array. Now with a mech, thankfully I have some nice, easy shapes that can connect to other areas. There's a parts limit in Hero Forge Kit Bash, which is 20 pieces that can be added to the original mesh of your character. This is over and above the gear, equipment, items they can wear, but as I'm making a mech here for this first part, I actually don't need that character at all. I'm just after the extra pieces. With the first piece exported at that parts limit, I can now move on to the next, and I tackle a sensor array up top. This was a lot of fun because I kind of morphed an RPG-7 into a jetpack and copied it a bunch of times until I had a pretty satisfying looking rocket pod. On the other side of this top piece, I also added a sensor array, once again using backpacks and then some oversized pieces and even a cassette player. With the top of the mech done, I could move down to the legs, and there's a bunch of science fiction wrist-mounted weapons and gubbins such as rocket launchers and little wrist-mounted laser guns. But when used out of context and modified with the scope and scale, these look a lot like mechanical pistons and leg segments. From here, I could deform some more science fiction looking parts such as a laser rifle and just clip it into these items, only keeping the parts of the detail that I thought worked and hiding the rest of it inside the other geometry. Working like this, it didn't take long for me to create my legs. And for this particular mech, I decided to go with 4 legs. And the main reason for this is I quite like the idea of the pilot sort of climbing up one of those front legs and then protruding out the front of the model. I thought would look really good for that. It also makes it look a little bit more low tech, which will fit with that sort of Borderlands, rusty, scrappy vibe me and Murray are going for. To finish off the legs, I used a sphere, which will work in the ball joints. And then I moved on to the pelvis section, which was really easy to create. Basically just using the cylinders, which will be the sockets for my ball joints, and then adding a few elements and decorations, much as I did the torso, just to detail it out and disguise the shapes of the original parts. With the bottom half of the model done, I created a variant of the legs that had a couple of spare bags and satchel packs on them, where soldiers hang their equipment because it's easier for it to carry it than them. Final equipment this mech has to have is of course some weaponry and some arms, and I decided to continue to push away from the humanoid look by creating a minigun arm. There's a really cool energy shield effect here that I kind of put on the shoulder. It looks a bit like some ablative armor or reactive armor, and this sort of detail also works really well to hide any areas of the model where maybe the kit bash parts parts are clipping or not looking quite perfect. You can just use more parts to hide your work. It's a really fantastic way to go through building a custom model. For the other arm, I didn't actually have to do much. I just used this really cool energy mining tool that they already have, enlarged it, and then added a couple of pistons into a shoulder. And it's changed from a mining laser into what looks like a pretty cool little grappling claw for this robot. Maybe it scraps in a robot gladiator pit, or maybe this is some kind of arc welder repair tool. Up to you to decide. Final step for this robot was to design the pilot. When I'm thinking of models that would be fun to paint or impactful visually, I often don't think about models in combat, but I find there's a lot more story that can be told in the moments between action. So for the model today, I'm deciding to create a mech where the cockpit is open and a pilot is either climbing in or sort of surveying the horizon, maybe being told something before entering the vehicle, because I think that is going to be able to create a really cool narrative in a miniature. Combining a little bit of that Top Gun aesthetic with a flight jacket to a plug suit a la Evangelion. I was thinking parts Diva from Overwatch mixed with Tracer, maybe Junkrat, I don't know, there was a whole lot of things blending here, and then a splash of Militaria from Titanfall. Overall, I went for a pose using the Kitbash tools to shape and bend the hands and limbs to fit the exact design I wanted. There's so much more customization available with people now. The character customizer would put the best AAA games to shame. You have complete control over facial features and proportions, but also now bodies. If you watch Hero Forge videos we did a few years ago, pretty much everything I mentioned has now been addressed. One of the things I didn't love was that I couldn't scale the hands and feet. You can now do all of that. There's now presets for just like real proportion or heroic proportion. And if you have a good 3D printer like us, or if you're scaling up your miniatures, all of the warnings that they mention about like print compatibility, you can get around with technical know-how. Now, of course, we advise going with their simple settings if you're doing this at home to make sure you get the best outcome. But if you are getting an STL rather than what's printed and delivered, obviously you have a lot more control over what you're making. So have fun with it. I'm really happy with how this has come together, and I'm really excited to see Murray's paint job. So let's take it over to him and have a look. So if you like what you see and you'd like to make your own custom miniatures, it doesn't have to be as wild as kit bashing a mech or a giant gargant or a giant sea golem, a ship golem. These are all things we've made, and you can make them too, but you can also just use it to create some awesome D&D characters. If you want to kit bash like us though, you do need a pro subscription, and the pro subscription is definitely worth it, giving access to all of these features as well as early access to all of the new items that they add, which they add new stuff every single month. And if you're a real fanatic for printing, maybe a DM, or you do want to create things like this on a regular basis in a really cost-effective way, if you go for their Pro Plus subscription, you actually get digital credits for downloads that work out cheaper than buying multiple STLs yourself. Now, something we didn't even touch on in this video is the painting tools. There is Color 2.0, which allows you to go through and completely digitally color and paint your models with different materials. And you can also set them up, pose them, and just take screenshots of them. This aspect is completely free. And if you don't have a 3D printer, that doesn't matter either. They deliver to you printed miniatures in multiple forms, from their standard plastic through to their premium plastic, but then also all the way to exotic materials such as acrylic standees for those who prefer simplified gaming tokens that are completely custom and look really great, or even metal to immortalize a famous character from one of your role-playing games, or perhaps your DM's favorite NPC as a present. Go check out the links in the description. Hero Forge is really awesome. This is a product we all in the studio completely get behind. But now that I've done telling you about Hero Forge, the model is probably printed, so Murray should be about ready to take it off the printer and get painting.
Alright, now that Dave has finished sculpting this and has sent it off to the printer, it's time for me to grab them off and start building. Kits with multiple legs that need to balance together on a single joint are always a little bit disconcerting, but Dave has actually done a really good job with the ball joints here. The only potential complications we have here is the cockpit. This entire structure is one piece, which I had to reach inside to remove all the supports in there, and might be a little bit finicky to get in there with all the paint, but I do have a plan for that, so let's start priming. I'm doing a big messy model, so I'm going to start with a base coat of black, and I'm going to use a heavy dry brush of metal over the entire thing. Then when that's done, it's time to start blocking out all the areas that I want to be different colors. While I was spending my time painting all the silver here, I was thinking about what color I want to do for the armor panels, and I realized that I haven't really painted anything blue in a while. That also has a strong sort of first player vibe, sort of for your red alert units or whatever. So I decided to go with a really nice strong blue for all the armor panels, starting with the biggest pieces and then building out from there. And if I thought blue wouldn't really work in some areas, that's where I'd put in some nice nice goldy bronze accents, just to break up some of the more mechanical aspects. Once I'm happy with my overall distribution of those simple colors, it's time to start putting in all the extra details, which is base coating the human and also just strips of green on the missiles, things to really make those separate and stand out. Now, one last thing is that I really want to draw a lot of attention to the cockpit here. So I've gone for a nice cream stripe going straight down the front of the cockpit. This is a really simple thing, but it will draw a lot of attention to the centerpiece of this model here, where the human is hanging off the cockpit. But it also adds a ridiculous amount of detail for being such a simple stripe of paint. To make it nice and straight, I'm going to block it out using tape and then stipple it in to get a nice weathered effect, adding in some scratches afterwards. And you might have noticed that I haven't taken anything to completion yet. That's because I'm gonna give a nice strong brown wash over everything here. This is gonna help both weather the model and also tie everything together and really ground it. This wash I'm actually gonna stipple selectively over parts of the armor, but then on the human I'll apply it in a more liberal, gentle manner. But when it comes to the armor, I'm going to make sure that I actually mess up this wash, in which I mean I want some areas of pooling, so I get those really weird bath ring effects on the wash, which usually you don't want at all. But having this on metal components, it's gonna feel like it's a dirty piece of metal that has all these stains and horrible things happening to it. Now, once my wash is dry, it's time to start doing all the fun details. Extra weathering, which is adding a lot of extra grime everywhere, followed up by little scratches of more silver. This will go onto all the corners of the actual armor panels to show where the paint is scraped off, but also used to re-highlight all the edges of the metal itself, helping to re-establish the contrast and the bright pops of color. Then I'm gonna start working on the human pilot herself, which I thought would look really cool with this sort of jacket she has on. It's sort of like a flight jacket. So I'm gonna paint it like a ruddy red leather jacket with that fluffy collar. And then to contrast that, I decided really dark pants and a sort of a white shirt would help everything really stand out. And then I thought red hair would be kind of cool. That's a very protagonist thing to have. And that's how I realized that I'd basically painted Vi from League of Legends Arcane. But it looks good, so I'm keeping it. Then after that, I painted in all the optics, leaning towards a really strong fiery red. Mostly because red is, on one hand, a really nice fierce color to do glowing lenses in, but also will bounce off really nicely with the blue armor and with this next step, which is gonna be making the cockpit glow. That's right, this is my plan for how to paint the cockpit here, which is gonna be really hard to get in with a paintbrush, but pretty easy to get in with an airbrush, as it'll give me a whole lot of directional control and create shadows. So I'm going to grab some white ink and I'm going to apply it all throughout the cockpit, allowing a little bit of spillover on the edges and onto the knee of the character here. As you can absolutely not tell, because despite it being easy to get in there with airbrush, it's really hard to get in there with a camera as well. So my hand is going to obscure everything. You're extremely welcome. Then when I'm happy with the white coverage, it's time to grab a fluorescent green and go in with that and basically repaint everywhere that I had already painted the white. The white undercoating is going to serve in allowing the green to really stand out and pop. Otherwise you'll be really lost on the silver and black underneath. So this is all just a little bit of color theory, which will allow effects like this. Check out this green cockpit. It's stunning and just adds that special amount of glow and interest that really makes you want to look inside the miniature here. But now it's done, it's time to show Dave and put on some reveals. As we watch our amazing creation, this mech revolve in our reveals, I want to give a shout out to you patrons, because it's you guys that let us do cool things like this. It is your continued support that lets us build this channel and build amazing content. If you'd like to join up, take part of our exclusive Discord in which we will chat. If you'd like to join up and take part of our exclusive Discord as well as our monthly mini review, the links are in the description below, and we hope to see you there. I love Australian chocolates.
Who's talking?
I don't know. He's done.
Very good.
Voila.
You've done such a great job painting this up, Murray. Well done. Look at this. It looks so grimy. It looks very like Borderlands.
Yeah, sort of Borderlands, Mad Max, Fallout. It was a fun time. It was really fun. I wasn't sure how well painting big bits of metal, a big structure was going to go with, you know, Hero Forge, but it worked really well.
I think one of the difficult points was definitely trying to create dynamic posing, which I didn't. I thought it would be at ease, but
Yeah.
I think you could do so much with this. There's a lot of ways to explore, and there's a lot of different mech creations that you could make at home. So go check out Hero Forge. Links are in the description, and get that pro subscription, and you can play around with kit bashing as well.
Pew pew.
There's no pilot. There's no pilot in there.
It can still pew.